Hello and welcome to the VideoVortex. This week we're going to be looking at some classic modern horror films from the last kind of 10 years or so, and it's been a real purple period for horror movies with films like Insidious, the Saw series, Annabelle, The Conjuring. There's many great things to those, but with the massive glut of these half-decent horror movies, it's very much cast a shadow over a lot of smaller, more independent films, and we're going to try and focus on those today. Many of them are from Britain, and there's some from our Aussie cousins as well, and also there's one with a sci-fi edge for a bit of variety thrown in as well. So let's start the list. First one is Kill List from 2011, starring Neil Maskell and Michael Smiley. Neil Maskell's excellent in this role. He perhaps found fame in Football Factory, which is quite a laddish kind of Nuts magazine style movie about football hooliganisms, and they kind of channel his kind of bubbling aggression in that role into this movie, and it's terrific. It's about two hitmen who in the previous year did a job that didn't go too well in Kiev, and it kind of haunted them in a way, and they desperately need money, so they decide to go for one last job. Directed by Ben Wheatley, who's an excellent director. After this he went on to direct 2 episodes of Doctor Who, the first 2 episodes with Peter Capaldi in. He found his fame in a movie called Down Terrace, which I've not seen. It's not a horror, it's kind of gritty London kind of drama. His movies classically tend to be quite sweary and very accent heavy, so some of you American viewers out there might struggle with some of the accents. This one's set in Sheffield, which is quite a strong Yorkshire accent at times. Performances are excellent, and it's a real kind of genre twister. It's kind of like a hitman movie with horror elements, particularly in the final third, and it very much kind of apes the style of a classic British movie from the 1970s. No spoilers, don't worry, but there's some terrific stuff. There's some excellent foreshadowing in this movie. There's some stuff in the first kind of 10 minutes or so that pays off towards the end. And I remember seeing this movie at Parswood Cinema, which is not far from Manchester. It's near a place called Stockport in England, the northwest. And I went to see this movie with somebody that wasn't really into horror movies, and they absolutely hated it. This is a terrific film to go and see with your friends, and you can kind of judge their taste off it. It sounds horrible. If you're into sociology, check out Pierre Bourdieu. He was big on like cultural distinction and stuff. And this movie is designed to make you feel uneasy, particularly the sound design. If you see it in the cinema, they really ramp up, I'm not up on technical terms, the vibrations and the noise and the effects to make you feel really uncomfortable. This isn't a movie with tremendous amounts of violence in. It's a lot of kind of like bubbling under, kind of fierce kind of energy, but when there is violence, it is really shocking. And I think it's important that we show violence for what it is. It's not something that's super entertaining. It's something that can be really horrific at times. There's a lot of kind of social commentary about the Iraq War in here as well. Some people find it a bit pseudo-intellectual for the sake of it, but I think it's a terrific movie. And what Wheatley did is he cut out a lot of the unnecessary exposition, and it runs at just over an hour and a half, I think, about 98 minutes from memory. It's really sharp, to the point, and oh boy, the ending. You might be able to see it come in, but hey, this is something that will stick with you for a long time. This is Ben Wheatley's British classic, Kill List. Next up is Elliot Goldner's Borderlands from 2013. It's still got the stickers from Entertainment Exchange on my copy, pretty much because I absolutely hadn't heard of this movie whatsoever. My soul brother Rick mentioned it to me in the pub one night and lent me a copy, and it's really, really good. Gordon Kennedy plays Deacon, who performs kind of like exorcists and things for the Catholic Church, and we find out it's very much a found footage movie. It's like a cross between the TV show Peep Show and a great horror movie like the Rec series. And we find out that previously in some, I think it's a South American country, he tried to do an exorcism and the situation didn't go too well, and he's kind of tied up in the guilt, and there's some interesting kind of social commentary on Catholicism there. At 89 minutes, it's sharp and to the point, which I think is always good for a horror movie. We don't like lengthy exposition, and it is like point of view. They have like head cameras and that. Now that might seem a bit hokey at first, but there's a good mix of humour in there, and the ending. And I know Mark Commode's a big fan. He's a big film critic in the UK. He's a big fan of this movie. The end is absolutely breathtaking. Some people have read a lot of commentary into a big scandal that's gone on in the UK with a guy called Jimmy Savile. He was, well, he's he's died now, but he would have been convicted of historic child abuse against people, and he was involved in some sort of, I'm not an expert on the case, some sort of charity thing, and this film actually takes the name Mandeville, which is to do with the name of that charity he was involved in, because one of the characters in this movie is involved in the exploitation of children, and some people read some social commentary into that. It's one of them movies where if you watch it like 3 or 4 times, you'll see new things in it you've not spotted before, and it's not just simply ghosts in the background. It's a really cool bit with a tombstone, which I didn't spot first time, which my soul brother pointed out, and that's Borderlands. It's really underrated. It's well worth checking out. Next up is Under the Skin from 2013, running at 108 minutes, and is directed by Jonathan Glazer. Before this, was most famous for directing a movie called Sexy Beast, which was a British gangster movie starring Ben Kingsley and Ray Winston. This is a movie that had been in gestation for a long period of time. At one point, it was Brad Pitt was even attached to be in it, but they've rewrote it quite a bit, and it's safe to say, I will be honest, I'd rather sit and look at Scarlett Johansson for about an hour and 3/4 instead. She's actually fantastic in this role, putting on a fairly decent British accent, and there's an enormous conceit in this movie where when they were making it, they actually got her to drive around Glasgow, and I think it's a white van or a black van, in character, and she'd actually pick up random Scottish gentlemen. Several of them seem quite old, not to buy into stereotypes too much. If you're not that familiar with the Scottish accents, if you have a bit of trouble with Peter Capaldi as Doctor Who, you will struggle with these accents, so it's worth putting the subtitles on. And they have secret cameras filming their interactions, and that is embedded into the movie. That makes up probably about 20 minutes. And it's really interesting because I don't want to spoil it too much, a few little bits in here. It's all about Scarlett Johansson is essentially an alien, and she's getting to find out what it means to be human. And there's some sequences where she's just walking around Glasgow, and it shows the kind of mundaneness of everyday life. And when I go shopping in Aldi, I was thinking, oh, this is a bit mundane, and it shows her kind of walking around, I think it's Asda, and near a Primark in like Glasgow High Street, and it says something about what it is to be human in a way. There's quite a bit of nudity in this movie. It's Scarlett Johansson, so it's not the worst thing in the world. I think some bits are a body double. You do get to see what I assume is a CGI erect penis as well. I've just eaten some German sausages for my tea, so I don't think about that too much. But this movie, it's so far out, and I don't want to spoil any of it, but it's safe to say some really horrific sequences in it. There's a whole 30 minutes at the beginning before there is any dialogue, so it's quite trippy art film. There's a sequence on a beach with a child that if you're not used to perhaps pretty far out cinema, you will struggle with this. And to me, the movie's really clever. It's a kind of like weird kind of quasi-feminist thing in that a lot of, particularly in the American market, a lot of people kind of went to the cinema thinking, oh, you get to see, I won't do an American accent, but I want to get to see Scarlett Johansson with her bits and bobs out, and that's why they went to see the movie. And that's a kind of key plot point in a way, the way that she lures men in. Because I've not seen it for a while, but I think she's just trying to get people into this black ooze, that kind of goo stuff, to help build a spaceship or replenish her skin or something. You can see where the kind of horror elements are coming in. I don't want to talk about it anymore because it will spoil it. Well worth checking out. It's Under the Skin. Next up is The Sacrament from 2013. Not many people seem to know about this one. It's produced by Eli Roth. He's a good friend of Quentin Tarantino's and has directed like the Hostel movies, which can be quite gory and gruesome. But this was directed by Ty West, who, in my opinion, he was like the golden boy of American horror, and sometimes he kind of drops the bat. He made an excellent movie in House of the Devil. I've not seen The Innkeepers, but people are a bit iffy on it. I think he did Cabin Fever 2 as well, but that was a bit of a compromise project. And he did a segment in the ABCs of Death as well. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's M for Miscarriage or something like that, which was pretty terrible, to be honest. But this movie, it's almost like a perfect sociology student movie about religion. It's about a kind of religious denomination. This is me trying to be politically correct and not say a cult. It's about a cult. It's very much based on the Jonestown massacre and the way that Jim Jones got people to go into, I think it was South America, And if you're quite familiar with the real case, it might spoil a bit of the film, but I wouldn't suggest you read up on the Jonestown Massacre. But this movie, it's really good. Again, it's a kind of handheld kind of movie point of view one, which has become quite fashionable in the last kind of 15 years, ever since the Blair Witch Project, but it was around from Cannibal Holocaust in about 1981. It was around a bit before that as well. But I actually think this one has got a lot of merit to it, has something to say. It's got a great kind of central performance by, I think the actor's called Gene Jones, I think, might be wrong there, playing the kind of Jim Jones type character, and it's well worth checking out. I think it's one of Ty West's best movies, so check out The Sacrament. Next up is the 90-minute 2009 movie A Mare. Now, if you've not got too familiar in the past with what we call giallo films, they're Italian movies. They were kind of like police procedurals mixed with a bit of horror and gore and gruesome and a bit of hey. You might see this as a bit of artsy nonsense. This is a kind of French-Belgian co-production, and this is a tribute to some of the great giallo movies of all time. And I've just got back from Rome recently, so I've got like giallo fever. Not yellow fever, that'd be horrible, but I'm obsessed with these films again. And this kind of cherry picks the best kind of images, motifs from their movies, and takes them in a brand new kind of fresh direction. Some people hate this movie. I really didn't enjoy the film that the filmmakers made after this, which I think is called The Strange Colour of Your Body's Tears or something like that. It was half an hour of genius and then kind of 60 minutes of, oh, you thought the film had ended? Oh no, there's a bit more and a bit more. It's like being kind of like poked in the eye by like a unicorn or something. Really annoying. Not that unicorns are real. Sorry to upset you, all younger viewers, but they're not. And it kind of traces kind of like three eras, this movie, A Mare, of like sexual awakening in a girl's life. And it sounds a bit seedy, but it's not. It's really hyper stylized. It's very expressive. The use of colours is really beautiful. I saw this at a theatre in Manchester. I think it's called like the Dance Floor, the Dance House on Oxford Road, on a double bill at a Grimfest event. It's like a horror festival. I kept nodding off a little bit, and that's no disrespect to the film, because I nod off a lot. But I kept waking up freaked out by this movie. It really creeped me out, particularly the first kind of 20 minutes. It's an excellent movie, criminally underrated. This is the fantastic A Mare. Next up is the Greg McLean film Wolf Creek from 2005 in 99 minutes. Now, I've not seen any of the sequels to this movie. I've heard the second one's quite good. I actually really enjoyed this. This is very much like a kind of Australian Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's about these backpackers that go into the wilderness. And of course, there is a kind of classic horror trope of why their cell phones don't work. But it's quite credible in this movie. And you come across this character who appears like a kind of classic Aussie stereotype that you might get in the kind of Crocodile Dundee movies. That's on the surface, but after a while he turns out to be perhaps not the nicest chap in the world, and most Australians are lovely. Look at, I'm trying to think of some, Naomi Watts, Kylie Minogue. You can see how my kind of track of thought works. I think Nick Cave's Australian. I think his greatest hits is pretty cool. And they are terrorised and tortured, but not in a kind of like really torture porn, that's not a term I like, but kind of torture porn kind of way. There's some good suspense. There's some really, really good twists in this movie, and it's a kind of good, fun movie. There's not too much swearing, or as you Americans call it, profanity. It's just a good, back to basics horror movie. The next one is a controversial choice. This is VHS from 2012, and it's a portmanteau movie with several different stories. You get directors like Ty West and Adam Wingard directing them. In terms of quality control, the whole thing is not a masterpiece. This is again perhaps one of the moments where Ty West kind of drops the ball. But the first story, Amateur Night, it's a good 20 minutes. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life, and particularly men will find this scary. What I like about VHS as a whole, it kind of comments on misogyny and this exploitation of women, which I hate. in mainstream cinema and in life in general. And this story has these guys, these kind of like frat boys or college boys, whatever you want to call them, go into this club, and they've got a secret camera hidden in this guy's glasses, and they want to pick up some girls. They get him to take drugs and basically take advantage of them. But one of the girls gets revenge. I don't want to spoil it, but it's safe to say there's this scene which creeped me out, and all men will probably relate to this. Whenever there's a scene in a horror movie where there's injury to a gentleman's special place, men literally cross their legs. I wanted to cross my whole existence, you know, this proper freaked me out. This is one of the best short kind of stories in an anthology I've ever seen. Whatever you think of the rest of the movie, you know, stick with it, check out some of the others. But Amateur Night, the first kind of story after the wraparound in this movie, is fantastic. Thank you for watching this episode of the Video Vortex. If you'd like to recommend any other modern horror films, bob them in the comment box or drop me an email, and maybe we could do a second episode of Modern Horrors. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.